The purpose of situational analysis is to understand the problem, needs, and aspirations of the community with a gender lens. We assess available resources, local capacities, and responses as basis for project design. We analyze power dynamics in the community, and we try to understand the program to which the project will build on. How do you gather data? Usually, we do basic research methodology of triangulation. We conduct a secondary review of available data. We gather information from the community from focus group discussions, dialogues, participatory research, surveys, etc. And we observe people and their context. We review the available literature to determine what others have already established about the situation. We try to build on this knowledge through our own research. This provides us a starting point on what further primary data to gather. We look at what communities and stakeholders have to say. If it is important to have quantitative data, conducting surveys is an option, but it is highly extractive in nature. We can conduct key informant interviews if we want to gather basic facts about the community or opinions of key stakeholders. If we are exploring a specific topic, a snowballing sampling, where informants will suggest other significant respondents, can prove to be very useful. We use focus group discussion to deepen conversations around specific topics and determine perspectives of specific sectors, not necessarily to gather basic data. We can do that with the interviews. We facilitate participatory research so that the community themselves are able to gather and analyze data together to inform their own plans and collective action. In terms of observation, scientifically designed experiments can be conducted to observe reactions of people. However, a powerful tool for community organizers is being part of the community and experiencing their lives firsthand. This provides us not only information for data gathering, but also critical insights and connection with people. The connection with people builds trust, the value of which goes beyond any data gathering exercise. There are thousands of data gathering tools available. You can search and study these in the internet or in publications. PMD Pro provides this diagram to help determine which tools to use based on your objectives. But there are other objectives and more tools available. More often, it's the case that community development practitioners revise tools in order to make it applicable to the situation or to their objectives. But before you start revising tools, try and master the basic available methods and tools. There are generally two approaches in structuring how we will gather data. The problem-based approach defines the problem, fixes what is broken, and focuses on the negative. This is a proven method to catalyze collective action and to address issues of the community. An asset-based approach seeks solutions that already exist, reinforces what is working, and focuses on the positive. However, this comparison is too simplistic. It makes it appear like a good versus evil decision. It can also be misconstrued as an activist versus reformist approach. In reality, both approaches complement each other. A problem-based approach identifies issues that matter to the people and tries to dig deeper into the underlying root causes. This allows the community to address the underlying root causes instead of mere symptoms of the problems. An asset-based approach focuses on the vision. It builds on existing strengths and capacities of the community to address these weaknesses. It can highlight asset-based access and control issues. If a problem or conflict-based approach can stimulate action from a passive community, an asset-based approach can inspire a burnout or discourage community to continue the collective action. Know when to use each approach. Some will manipulate the use of asset-based or even appreciative inquiry to suppress dissent within a group. Beware. Problem tree, solution tree is another tool that should be mastered by every CD practitioner. It's too easy that often people just forget to practice it. We first determine the core problems. We then identify causes as roots and effects as branches. And then we extend this further. We cluster related causes and effects and then select the strategic causes to address. Take note that the strength of the problem tree is not in identifying causes and effects, but in deepening the analysis and uncovering underlying root causes. Be sure that you address the issue, not just the symptoms. After defining the problem and its root causes, the next step is to translate the problem tree to a solution tree. Take note that the objective tree is not an example of an asset-based approach as implied in the PMD Pro online course. Another tool often used is the stakeholder analysis. While the stakeholder analysis tool was used in the PMD Pro project management course, take note that it described the stakeholders of the project, not stakeholders of the community. These project stakeholders will ensure the success of the project only. Stakeholders are individuals and groups that have an interest in the community's cause. Some claim that the term stakeholders has already been depoliticized from the original term of interest groups. In the stakeholder analysis, we attempt to surface the interest and the power of each stakeholder. We also attempt to define what change we want to come out of them in terms of behavior, action, and processes. This is particularly useful in advocacy and campaigns work of the community. Here are some development frameworks. These help in framing the data you gather for analysis. The Sustainable Livelihood Framework is a good example of an asset-based approach. Separate slides and video has been made if you want to explore this more. Take note that livelihoods here refer to a way of life and not just a source of income. Farming and fishing goes beyond the market-based activities. As a community-based development framework, here is a menu of options of participatory data gathering tools that can be used to generate different data sets. The Sustainable Livelihood Framework is usually applied in rural communities. Several spin-offs of this framework have been made to other communities and in applying different themes. The Disaster Crunch model used in disaster risk reduction is one of the offshoot frameworks of the Sustainable Livelihood Framework. When conducting a participatory capacities and vulnerability assessment, the underlying framework used for data gathering is the Sustainable Livelihoods approach. If instead of community livelihoods, we do want to focus on enterprises and market-based interventions, there are other frameworks and tools that you can use. For enterprise development, the usual method is to undertake a feasibility study. Here we undertake a market, technical, organizational, and financial analysis. Most of the time, the analysis is on the proposed plan, not necessarily the actual context. Do not confuse the feasibility study as a tool for situational analysis. The combination of these analyses will inform the proponents to either push through with the initiative or to adjust their plans to improve the feasibility of the proposed project. A participatory tool that can be used for gathering information on markets and value chains is market mapping. Here, the market system is defined, taking note of market players, profits, volume of the commodity, infrastructure, and support services. Take note that in this example and other value chain methods, the subject is the commodity, not the community. This can help inform the community of the situations outside their community. After all is said and done about frameworks, remember that frameworks are like toothbrush. Everybody needs them, but nobody wants to use someone else's framework. understand the framework and the tools, but you do not necessarily need to fit communities into the frameworks. We want to listen to the voices of the people and help them define their own development framework. By understanding the different frameworks already developed, we are able to make more sense of the realities felt and perceived by the community. Categorization is simply having a framework first and fitting the data. Sensemaking, on the other hand, is having the data first and then looking for or tweaking a framework to fit the data to make sense. You need not be tied to a specific framework, but you need to master these frameworks to be able to play around with them. Any questions?